All right. Well, welcome everyone to our last night of Intuitive Improv and Collective Wisdom. And before hitting the record button, we were just kind of reflecting on our time together last week and how we were deepening into this concept of remembrance and what that did for us. And I do encourage you to watch the replay if you missed it. And also I captured in text some of the pieces that came out of our final exercise in the evening where we were kind of speaking as remembrance. And so that's in the email that went out to you with that replay. So we actually harvested and captured and have a shareable format. And I invite you too to take that and just and use it as well, right? You know, you have it for your own use. If you're a content creator, you can also, pull from that. So you're welcome to do so, because that's when we create things like this, it's kind of like the collective commons, right? Whatever we come up with all together here kind of falls within the collective commons. So let's see. Did anyone, before we move into this week fully, does anyone have anything that you'd like to share with maybe how remembrance, how that topic, or how some of the things that we touched into last week might have shown up for you?
When we shared at the end what we were going to take away, based on our sensory remembrance, I thought that I would bring it forward into my current life. And so I said that I was going to remember to experience the experience. And I thought, well, the next day I was like, okay, let's limit it to one thing. So I usually eat breakfast alone because Mike sleeps later than I do. So I read when I'm eating my breakfast. And this past week, I spent the week when I was having breakfast, like, don't read, experience what you're tasting, experience the feeling of chewing, look out the window that's right in front of me. I could see the birds on the deck. And yeah, it was actually a very enriching way to eat breakfast. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. That mindfulness piece that also came up last week, right? About how remembrance and delving into the topic of remembrance really brought forward the importance of now, right? The importance of being fully present in your now. That's lovely, Janet. That sounds really, really good. Anyone else?
For me, remembrance tied really strongly into, so I was trying to do like a lot of childhood memory and trying to remember what it felt to be like truly carefree or truly joyful and kind of experience those things. But with that comes the flip side of the coin, and it really tied a lot into empathy. I think, my daughter's going through things, which like the things are like the 4 times tables are really hard, and those like 1-minute quizzes, we all did those. That's just anxiety provoking. And so but being able to really deeply get into my memory of those experiences allowed me to really empathize. Like, yeah, this does feel huge. Like the whole world is wrapped up in this 60-second times table quiz. So that was an interesting tie-in. I didn't walk away from last time expecting, and it kind of just presented itself. It was nice.
I really like what you just said about kind of tying like remembrance and how that creates space for empathy, because it hasn't been something that I think was like a thought in my brain before, but like so true. And I think for me over the last week, it's been like more like 2 things, like focused on remembering like how to be playful and actually like engaging with that. And like, I don't know if like my female cat's picking up on that, because she was been like extra playful recently too. So it's been like kind of fun to like engage with her more and like kind of carve out that space and remember, what it kind of feels like light and playful. And then the other thing that I noticed that I wasn't expecting was my mom is sick. And so things were like popping up of like good times and like good memories of like remembrance. So like, for example, it was my birthday last week and my mom calls me every year and like sings happy birthday to me. And so like that kind of like sparked this year of like, oh, this is like something I want to remember. And like kind of focusing more on those experiences that I actually want to like remember and kind of like hold dear versus of like letting go of some of maybe the not so great experiences.
Mm.
I was also trying to bring in the aspects of play that we talked about last week. I'm taking a pottery class and it just started and I went into it and I had all of these ideas of like, okay, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to make. And I was like, okay, let's not do that. And I spent all of Sunday just kind of like seeing what came and just like getting my hands dirty and making things and going with the flow. So I'm seeing that kind of come out in an artistic way of like, I'm making these really strange little things and I don't even know if I like them, but we're going to see where it goes. And I think that's been a little bit more of like a light way to engage artistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that remembering how to just be in the play, how to just be in that space of openness. We have so just what I want to say, such deep memories of the things that close us down, right? Of the things that cause us to close, right? And then, but to then invoke that memory of openness through the play, right? Then you begin to embody it. And I just got chills. So it's just like, yeah, to invoke that memory of openness. Yeah. All right. Before we, I'm excited to know what we're going to do this week. Looking for my lighter. There it is. All right. I am going to light a candle for us. Kind of call in that sense of focus, of having a center point for us to kind of be around while we're here together, each in our own space, but yet here together in our we space that we have created and are co-creating. And so maybe just really taking a breath and letting the shoulders drop if they're up. And just presencing yourself here fully in our playtime here together tonight. Yeah. Okay. So, maybe Brian, I'm not sure. Has anyone here on the call not participated in the choosing of the topic of the cards yet? Mary Jo, were you called on? Acadia? Okay. All right. All right, Mary Jo. All right. So Acadia, I'm going to have you choose the deck.
Oh, fun. Okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
I just looked at all these in the shop on Friday. Okay, I'm ready.
I don't know if these are at the shop.
Okay.
This is a Soulful Woman
Mhm.
or Whispers of Lord Ganesha. No, there are choices to make.
Soulful Woman, please. John,
Okay.
hold alienated Mike, you're good. Okay,
They're soulful women too.
that's right.
All right. Mary Jo, I'm going to have you tell me when to stop shuffling.
No.
Okay. And then Janet, I don't think you played before, have you? Okay, Janet, tell me how many numbers down is our card? Either off
Five.
the top or off the bottom. Let me know.
5 from the top.
5 from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. Get out of my way. Okay. Are you ready, guys? Okay. The feminine law of attraction. The feminine law of attraction. And the subtext on it is, I love the creative adventure that is my life. I celebrate myself as a female creator. Ooh. Put that up there. Wait a second and let you. Yeah. Feminine law of attraction. I love the creative adventure that is my life. I celebrate myself as a female creator. Ooh. So I invite you all to feel yourself in your own body. Yeah, chi energy ball. So feeling yourself in your own body, noticing where your body is meeting the chair or the floor or bed, whatever you're sitting on. Feeling how that's supporting you. And feeling the space around you, the room that you're in. Just kind of noticing where you're located in that space. And also what you know about what's around that space, like what's on the other side of those walls, what's above that ceiling, what's below that floor. So just kind of widening your awareness of the space that you're in, your current location. Yeah. Continuing to hold that location in your felt sense, bring your awareness to the screen that's in front of you. And its location, even noticing the distance between your body and the screen. Right. And then feeling into your connection to the people through the screen. Using this magic of space-time, dimensional space here. And then continuing to feel kind of your location in your space and your connection to the others in their spaces. And now see if you can tune into that space, that energy field that we co-create by doing that. It's nice and rich, potentiated. space. Space that's full of potential. And space where we have access. It gives us access, this shared space, to wisdom and knowledge and energy, right? To even support what we may wish to do or create in that space. And so I have some things that we could lean in, but I guess I would ask, as this topic came up, the feminine law of attraction, what arose for you kind of immediately when you heard that topic? And maybe it can be a question, maybe it was an image, maybe it was a feeling, maybe it was a thought. But what was doesn't have to be your very first, but what was your initial response? So what emerged, what arose for you when first encountering this topic?
When you read the description, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the phrase creative adventure really stuck out. I think what Brianna said about her pottery class really resonated, and this feels like it dovetails so nicely into that.
Yeah. John, did you have?
Yeah, as Acadia said, the creative adventure. When I retired, I chose to revamp my life to live as a creative and try to live in the moment and attract that to me, which resonated with my heart and my soul, which basically is my music and my creative side. And more that happens, opportunities come up. I wound up playing for International Jazz Day in the middle of Fresh Time Market here in Ypsilanti last week, which was just a fun blast thing to do. So I view the pulling of that card, I view the creative side and the artistic side in me as more my yin side and my feminine side than expressing through my masculine side of my hands on the drums and it being a very holistic thing for me. So yeah, that's what came up.
What came up for me was the image of the energy, like the ball of energy in her lap, which would be like close to her hara, and that could be chaos as well as creativity. I mean, I think creativity comes out of the chaos of potentiality, and so that intrigued me, that we can't approach this law of attractions wanting to order it too much. We have to be playful with it and allow it to kind of speak to us. So that intrigued me.
Yeah.
I think what came up for me was maybe two different things. Like one, how kind of tying that playfulness in from last week and how creativity in general kind of requires some form of playfulness. In addition to kind of rolling with mistakes, right? Just allowing those happy accidents to happen when we're being creative and playful. And then the other area my mind kind of went to was maybe more with the law of attraction of creating what we want, what I want in life, and kind of putting that intention and that energy out there, and being open to whatever way that kind of comes back or creates itself. Because sometimes those things come in ways that we don't expect, that I don't expect.
Mhm.
I think to build off of that, I started thinking about the like push and pull of creating and like putting things out there, but then having that come back as like attraction. Because the two can be hard to like view as this as being related sometimes, because I think when you're in that act of creating, whether it's I'm trying to, put out what I want in the world, I'm trying to put my career together or whatever, it's hard to then like see that reciprocity of like that attraction of things coming back to you. It feels like a tension that I'm trying to like resonate with.
Yeah.
I wrote down an interesting phrase. Creativity is ordered chaos. So you have the chaos, which is the infinite potential, but it maybe has no form, and it is what it is at any moment. And then through creativity, it starts to take form that you can actually get somehow tangible at whatever spiritual sense wise, whatever, it becomes tangible.
Hmm.
One more thing, meaning you got to roll with it. Ultimately.
Ultimately.
Well, as a practical example, as Ashley said, you got to take it as it comes up. Being retired and all, revamping my life to live as a creative, I live within a budget. And so usually my bills are paid and I have enough food and everything, but I run out of expendable cash by 2 weeks before the end of the month. So my roommate had mentioned, can I make some guacamole? And it's like, I was on the bus coming back from the gym and I'm like, well, I don't have any money left to buy avocados. Wait a minute, I have $1 and some change. They were on sale for 99 cents. I can stop and get one. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot the money at home. Okay, well, but then somebody got on the bus and they got off 2 steps later and they left a bag sitting next to me on the bus and they were gone. And they were going to be coming back for it. And I looked down and it was a bag with 3 avocados. And so huge avocados. And I was like, well, I can leave them here. I can give them to the driver, but it's food and who knows what's going to happen with it. So I just like, thank you to the person who left the avocados behind. And thank you to Spirit for blessing me with the avocados to make the guacamole.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Anyone else with the first kind of emergence? I had a lot of stuff come up when throughout this, and I probably lost most of it too, because I was just like continuing to empty out, right? Let it come in and empty out. There was something, Mary Jo, that you said though, that you were talking about the chaos and how we are in the chaos, and also about the law of attraction, right? There's this piece that there's something here for me. There's this paradox here around the law of attraction, right? And chaos, and how creativity comes out of the void and it moves into chaos, right? It's chaos before it comes into form. It's just purely potentiated, right? And I think we tend to think of chaos as chaotic, right? Chaotic and something that we don't like is often is this chaotic, but chaos when in creativity is just that it has not yet come into form or structure, right? Just that it has not you know, begun to coalesce into from idea or etheric from the mental down into kind of like the physical spaces and showing up there. And yeah, I was also sitting with the kind of the tie between what we were talking about right before we, entered into this topic, and about this openness, and how kind of remembering how to be in this openness is really, um, you know, a very feminine way to create, right? Whether or not it's within love, attraction, or, but it is a very feminine way to open, to receive, even in uh physiological conception, right? If we're talking just about biological creativity, procreativity, right? There is an openness that has to happen in order for that to be planted, right? In order for that seed to be planted, there has to be an opening, right? There has to be a space that is made for that. And patience, that's the word that also just kind of lifted up for me. It's just like, it requires patience. I feel like, yeah, as a female creator, it does, it takes time to gestate an idea or a creation or a child or whatever it is, right, that is coming through. It takes time for that to come into form enough to really bring out into the world, and even send out into the world, as Brianna was speaking. Our creations, our little creation babies, sending them off into the world. So yeah. And I feel like, oh, and here's the piece that I'm not remembering, that was coming up for me when Mary Jo was speaking about that chaos, and I was thinking about the law of attraction. And this last year I've been studying like Western esotericism, and some of those forms of magic, and it's things of and they're very exacting, right? It's very masculine in that approach. And it's just like, and be really careful with your words. So you want to paint and ask for and draw in exactly what you want. Right? You have to be specific. And a huge part of me is always just like, no, no, that just doesn't feel right. And I understand it as one of the laws of, if you don't get clear on what you ask for, you could get anything, right? And you can get chaos, and but there's that, I think, Ashley, you were mentioning about how it's unexpected, what it comes up. Even Stars Chalice is one of those things. I never ever set out to have a retail store. It just wasn't ever in my it wasn't on my radar, wasn't on my roadmap, wasn't, but it is fulfilling something that I was asking for, right? So it's just like, once you let the chaos do its thing. But it was better, I did have a different idea and a road that I, somewhere that I was trying to go. But this way was a better road. It's a better way to get there than I was even like trying to imagine. And so for me, it's just like, that to me is a more feminine way of doing it, a more intuitive way of doing it, of, kind of just opening up to the possibilities. And you don't know what the baby looks like, kind of till it gets here. So yeah, it feels to me like a paradox in some ways, or a wicked question. Like I was playing around a little bit this last week with wicked question formats, right? And the concept of wicked questions comes out of spaces of deep problem solving, working in complexity capability. I think I mentioned that a little bit, but it's just like, how can you get people to be able to sit with a question that has a lot of complexity, that has paradox, that has, all these different ways. And one of the best ways is to pose the question in a way that's not already predetermining or presetting it in one direction or the other, right? And one that kind of holds for a lot of the possibilities. And so it's like some of the forms, one of the forms is like, if people want blank, why do we blank? Right? So if people say they want peace, why do we have war? I mean, that's just like right? But being able to like slide into that. Another way to form is, how is it that we are blank simultaneously? Or I'm sorry, how is it that we are blank and blank simultaneously? Right? That's a way to form a wicked question. Why do we say blank and do blank? And then there's also these formats that are called like challenge questions or challenge statements or questions. And they're really open-ended. They're just like, how might we blank? Right? Or what else is possible? And what if blank? Right? So these are just like really simple formats that you can bring into spaces when you're dealing with what seems to be potentially paradox, right? Or what seems to be sticky problems, right? Or things that are so complex, right? Yeah. I know that it's like, I don't know if any of you are familiar with The Secret, had read The Secret or seen the movie, and it's really on the law of attraction. And my response to The Secret was always just like, yeah, but they've only got a sliver of it. Right? They've taken like a sliver of it, and they're exploring or talking about, but it kind of felt like they were taking that sliver and talking about that sliver like it was the whole, right? Like it was the whole thing. And yeah. And then that leads people into a lot of like disappointment, I think. And yeah. Well, I'm doing the things. I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do to make the things happen. Why aren't they happening? Yeah. So
What I heard was receptivity and patience.
hmm,
You have to be willing to receive. And you have to be patient enough to actually take the time, take the space, and let whatever's going to show up and what you're willing to receive, let it show up. Anyway, that's
yeah. Receptivity is a big part, right, of feminine creation too, right? Receptivity is that ability to receive. Yeah. The wicked question is, why do we say we want to manifest things, and then when they show up, we can't receive them?
that's the missing piece. That's part of the missing piece you were talking about in The Secret. Exactly that.
Yeah. Yes, because we've been culturally told that receiving is bad. In a lot of ways, right? Receiving is bad, from that, that Puritan ethic, right? You don't get anything unless you earned it. You've got to what are some more of the tropes that tell us that receiving is bad?
I don't know if this is exactly what you're referring to, but I feel like that like the hustle mentality right now just makes me so sad. Like the grind and like that whole idea that if you're not out there pushing and grinding, it's never going to happen. It just feels so toxic to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And this whole concept of busyness as a badge of, a badge of honor, my busyness.
I think like all of the cliches around greed have been implanted too, to be humble and to not take too much and to it's kind of like the old mentality of there's only a finite amount of pie, but there's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then one of the other aspects that just springs to my mind, that I used to bring up, especially in a dogmatic religion, was that you work hard your entire life and you'll be rewarded in the next life.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Or how about in order to be a good mother, you have to give your life over to your children, right? Hmm. What other stories stop us from maybe receiving?
I think what's coming to mind for me is like it's bad to be selfish. And like all of like the thoughts and like negativity that's out there about that, which kind of reinforces that like my needs don't matter. Which, then there's like the codependency where we're always putting other people before ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And related to what you just said, Ashley, there's so many other people that deserve this and I don't, Yeah.
The funniest thing that ever happened to me is like sometimes there'd be food left over. And I said, well, we got to eat this. People are starving in China. This is like 50, 60. So we were in Beijing in an alley and we had all this food left over. And I said, people are starving in China. I said, oh, wait, I am in China. So much for that.
When I was heavily involved in Tibetan Buddhism, of course, one of the tenets is may all sentient beings be guaranteed, may all sentient beings receive abundance, prosperity, health. Well, and one day it finally dawned on me, hey, I'm one of those sentient beings. I used to always not think of myself in that manner and exclude myself from that. And then through whatever lessons and workshops, whatever, it finally dawned on me that I'm included in this. It's not selfish. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had a strong one that a channeler had advised me on one day. She said, I heard that you need to hear you don't need to be damaged to be valuable. And it rooted in, I grew up religious as well, and it kind of rooted itself in something where I felt like I needed to hurdle over a challenge or work through a challenge to be worthy of something on the other side of it. And if there was no obstacle to face, I would put one there. So I didn't need to keep on allowing myself to be beat up, figuratively and for real, and or present myself with other challenges in front of myself to feel worthy at the end of it. Like stand alone, do your thing, and that was a big I didn't even realize that was tied into my self-worthiness, was putting challenges in front of myself to make me feel worthy of the reward at the end.
What you just said, Courtney, is really reminding me of like the card that we pulled, like with the law of attraction and like how we've been talking about chaos, how like if like I'm closed off or like in a bad like mental space, I'm like, right, like creating like this other form of chaos. It's almost like reinforcing like some of the more negative stuff versus being in like a more open space, and what that attracts instead.
You are absolutely right, Ashley. It gets to be a quick little ditty.
Yeah, like there's like good chaos, right? And then there's like this destructive chaos.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
This this activity is popping up. Not 100% sure how it relates, but but it's popped into my head like 3 times since we started. So I'm gonna trust it and go with it, and trust that we will be able to integrate it into our concept as we go. Right. So this is an activity that I learned at an art of hosting workshop. And I don't know if you're familiar with art of hosting or not, but it's training and actually how to do kind of how to do group work, how like some of these organizations that are making decisions on things that affect the world, right, or their organization or their part of the world. These are sets of activities to help people get from problem spaces to solution spaces, right? Part of this is like learning that there are different tools for different jobs, right? But first it's kind of understanding the jobs. So this one, I forget what it's called, but it has to do with really understanding the difference between something that's simple, something that's complicated, and something that's complex, right? And something that is chaotic, right? So those are the 4 kind of different ways of categorizing, I think, problem and solution spaces.
Could you say
So,
that again? Simple,
yes.
complicated, complex,
Simple,
and what?
complicated, complex, and chaotic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe that's why it was popping in my head because I even forgot about the chaos piece until I was like, wait, there's one more. Yes, chaos. All right. So never done this on Zoom before. So we'll have to figure out how to do this in Zoom. But there's small enough number of us that I think we can do it here. All right. So our first exercise that we're going to lean into is we are going to organize ourselves by age. Okay. All right. So how old are y'all? Who thinks they're the oldest here? That's up. All right. Janet and Mike, how old are you?
Me, 76.
I'm
76.
75.
Okay.
73.
All right.
You're
How old are you,
muted.
Mary Jo? Yeah, you're muted.
74.
Okay. So it's Mike, Janet, Mary Jo, John. Probably me next. I'm 58. Anyone? Okay. I'm 58. Who's next?
I think it's me. I'm 40.
Okay.
Maybe me.
Okay.
Oh no, wait, I'm 39. Round down. Just got a year back.
I think I would be next at 45.
Okay. So Amanda, then Acadia. All right.
I'm 39.
Okay. Then Ashley. All right.
I
Brianna,
am going to be June next month. I'm going to be 37. 38.
It's
My
round
kids
down.
always laugh at me when I do that, but I have to do the math. I don't know how old I am
do.
most of the time.
And then I'm 30.
You're 30.
Mhm.
Baby Brianna.
I'm laughing. I was doing the same thing. I was asking my husband, how old am I?
Yeah. I know it because one of my kids just had their birthday, and so we're always just like figuring it out. So I got reminded recently how old I am. Okay, so as we organize ourselves by age, we are Mike, going oldest to youngest, right? We are Mike, Janet, Mary Jo, John, Mara. Then is it Amanda,
Mhm.
Acadia, Ashley, Courtney, and Brianna? Yes. So that is a problem that had a question, a problem statement, like how do we organize ourselves by age? That's fairly simple. Okay. So that's like a simple problem statement. We can figure that out together, right? Just a little bit of communication. All right. Now let's organize ourselves by age and eye color.
Mm. Mm.
All right. How do we want to do that? And all attempts at organizing ourselves that way are open to suggestion.
Okay, I have blue eyes. Who is in the blue eye team? Whoa, we are blue eye heavy in
Oh.
this group. My goodness.
Yeah, we are.
Me too.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Who doesn't have blue eyes?
Right.
What color are
Hazel.
your eyes, Janet?
Hazel.
Yep, mine too. Hazel green. Mine go hazel green.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
Brownish, greenish, whatever, yeah.
crazy.
Somewhere.
All right. So how do we now factor age into that? How are we going to organize ourselves by age and eye color? We've got our groups of eye color figured out.
Right. So the easiest way might be to just say, well, there's two of us that are hazel. So we know our ages, we can do that. We just
Mhm.
take us out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of them by age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We still
Yeah.
got Mike leading the way. Blue eyed
Yeah.
Mike. over
Yeah.
You're number one, blue-eyed.
Blue-eyed Mike.
Number one again.
And blue-eyed Brianna on at the
Depressing.
still youngest. Wow. Okay. So that's an example of complicated. So that you have variables that are at play, and there may not be such a clear way to organize, right? And there may be multiple ways to organize, right? There may be more than one way that we could slice and dice this, that we can organize ourselves by age and eye color. Okay, so that's an example of something that's complicated. It's a little more complicated. Okay, but we can still get there, right? With communication and with agreement, right? Some levels of agreement, we can get there. Okay. All right. The next one is how do we organize ourselves by experience?
What kind of experience?
Yeah, I
Great
would have to say you would have to
question.
define experience.
Yes, great question. How
I think
shall
if
we
we
organize?
if we do life experience, it could be like super similar to the age, because the older you, I just made it super simple maybe, but like the older you are, like the more life experience you have.
Yeah. And that's a great example of how we often use oversimplification for complex problems, right? Yes. And that's what we tend to do as well, right? It's just like we need a solution, so we're going to oversimplify the problem in order to land on a solution, right? Okay. How do we organize ourselves by experience? And And spoiler alert, there's absolutely no right answer here.
Well, I mean, I think after the last part of like it being an oversimplification to say life experience by age, again, as mentioned earlier, we have to define experience. So maybe you have to lay out categories of experience: work experience, educational experience, spiritual experience,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera.
Travel.
Yeah, it's funny. My
Yeah.
mind went to spiritual experience just because I know John well and know that he's dabbled in a lot of things, explored a lot of things deeply is probably more appropriate than dabbled. And then, Mike, you mentioned being in China and eating a meal in an alley, and I have a lot of curiosity about that. So I'm like, oh, we could do travel experience and like cultural, like knowledge
Mhm.
base would be interesting.
Right. Yeah. So in complexity, you may be able to take and shave off a part of something, a category, and then begin to simplify that to be able to get some level of organization around that. But it's still only going to be a part of the whole, right? So if the problem space is how do we organize ourselves by complexity, or I'm sorry, by experience, that is a very complex question, right? And the first thing we want to do is define it, and define it in a smaller thing that we can grab and in which our minds can work it, right? But in real world problems where you have complexity, let's talk about food scarcity, right? We talk about starving children in China. You can slice and dice and you can look at a bunch of different root causes and everything, but there will be no solution space until you can account for the whole. Because a complexity means that, you know, first of all, you're dealing with either a full system or probably an ecosystem of systems, right? So it's multiple systems of variables, untold number of variables coming into play, right? And so when you're working with complexity, you're going to use different tools than when you're working with something that's within simplicity, right? Something that is that you can apply known facts to, right? And you can organize, right? So the tools that you use to solve a simple problem won't really work in a complex space, right? And it might work to move the needle on something, right? But it won't really impact the overall systems, right, that are at play when you have complexity. I don't have it in front of me now, but there are some really good definitions of complexity and about how to identify when a problem is complicated, because complexity and complicated often also get, you know, kind of swapped around, right? People often say, well, that's complex, you know, when really it's truly only complicated, right? If you have like some known variables and things that you can work out. Complexity, even when we were talking about you know, making different categories, and then within those categories kind of figuring out how we're going to organize within those categories, you know, you can begin to even think about like a matrix, using a matrix solution. Matrix solution, though, is mostly will work for complicated, because one of the other aspects about complexity is that often the definitions also continue to shift, right? So as we know and understand more, then the definitions also morph into right, greater expanded awarenesses, or into just even like, oh, things are not as they appear, right? And oh, the butterfly, right? The butterfly wing over here is causing the tsunami over here, right? So how do we stop tsunamis? We stop butterflies. so you know, so these spaces are ones of really kind of trying to understand the nature of what it is that you are working with, and trying to not oversimplify, or not try to use like tools that because it's easy to want to do, because these are the tools that we have for problem solving, right? Complexity requires a totally different approach than fact-based, knowledge-based, put it in a matrix, figure it out. Complexity requires this. Complexity requires the ability to hold in wholeness the whole, to hold in wholeness the whole. Yeah, the whole of whatever it is, right? And I think I had talked a little bit in one of the previous weeks too about complexity, or negative capability, right? Negative capability is actually one of the capacities that we can develop to be in these problem spaces of complexity. Negative capability is the ability to sit and not grasp, move, stretch, reach for a solution, or grab on to like the first thing, but to just be until something arises, right? And often in doing complexity, all you get is the next step, because it's complex and because the terrain moves. As you move, you make impact, you make an impact on the system changes, right? So you have to be able to be in this space of being in negative capability, being able to open, being able to be in that playful, creative mind, right? Which allows you to receive, information on what is emerging, in that field, in the we space, right? And often it is only just the next thing, the next smallest step. And then with the next smallest step, then you have to drop back into the unknowing, right? Drop back into the wholeness, right? The ability to hold the next thing. And also give time for whatever your movement did to have its ripple effect throughout the system, right? Throughout the complex system, whatever it is. Yes, Mary Jo.
I think I can give an example of that. On Earth Day, I was listening to a presentation, and they were talking about how do we save the planet.
Yeah.
The scientists have been focusing on energy and sustainability and recycling, but they said really until you educate women, until you address racism, until you look at poverty and inequality. And so they had about 27 different categories that were all part of this complexity, issue of looking at moving ahead as a global society to address a global concern. I thought it was fascinating, and it would be a good example of what you're talking about. Yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And each one of those things are a complexity field within themselves, right? But they impact one another because it's all of course interrelated. But yes, having the capacity to just also not just look to one portion of our brain trust, right? Like just relying on science, or just relying on prayer, or just relying on this or that to save us, right? Is yes, that whole thing of like, how do we save the earth? How do we save the world? That is complexity in its in its nutshell, right? That is the realm though in which these kind of activities are being born, right? Because it's just like we have to think about how we think about things. We have to really think about and recognize what our tendencies are when we're trying to problem solve. We have to recognize and think about how our individual, I guess I would say, shadows or traumas get in the way, right, what the interplay is with those individual ones, with the overculture and the social trauma, the racial trauma, the gender trauma, all these levels and layers of trauma that come into play, that get in the way of that close us down, right? Because we were talking earlier about, memory. Our remembrance is mostly of what closes us down. And what's helpful is to remember, how to open, remember how to just be, remember how to, yeah. Go ahead, Mary Jo.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's
But
okay.
again, what is really coming to me is what Einstein said, that intuition is much stronger than intellect. And so when we think of these complex issues, if we imagine we're in a field that loves us, that is wise and good, and we can intuit, when we quiet ourselves down enough to receive that wisdom, I think it really feels less complex, right? I mean, that this field is really inside of us. We're living inside of it if we can trust it through our intuition to connect. And that's where I'm finding hope these days.
Yes.
Enough of us can come into that field. And I think that's what you're encouraging us to do in these 3 classes, really, is to look at how we can connect as a kind of maybe an organism that loves each other and can connect with that broader field to something.
Absolutely. And another thing that you were kind of alluding to is what within this realm of problem solving is what we call second simplicity. Second simplicity is the solution that seems rather simple, but it does hold the whole. It's not what's the word I want? It's not deducing things or taking something down to its smallest part in simplicity. It's actually a simplicity that can hold the whole. And second simplicity is, of course, the space that we want to move for, because it is so complex. Our brains are not capable actually of problem solving within that realm in that way. We have to surrender into a space of openness and trust in order to get to second simplicity. It doesn't mean that we don't go through those other parts, because we have to. In order to get to second simplicity, you actually have to have some level of mastery over the complicated and the complex, right? You have to have some level of mastery over doing simple problem solving and complicated problem solving, and knowing how to be in the complexity in order actually to arrive to any kind of solution space that would fall within second simplicity. My best example of something that is what we call second simplicity is the Google interface. So Google is the Google capability, the search capability, when they first came out with the search engine, right? 1 bar. And if anyone of you had done previous searches, like in libraries and having to learn the syntax and all that kind of thing of how these searches actually work, here comes Google with 1 bar, and you type in it what you're looking for. That is second simplicity. An immense amount of brain and trial and error and creativity and knowledge and mastery over the technology had to be there in order to get to that second simplicity, right? In order to get to that beautiful, clean solution, we do have to lean into the parts that are really messy and try to, understand all of those things. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting to hear you talk about, because I see a lot of similarities in my work that I do. So I'm a design researcher, and basically what that means is I do user research, gather all of this data, end up having like thousands of post-it notes, and whether it's in a physical space or a digital space. And in every project that I've done, it gets to the point where I'm just like drowning in that, right? You're trying to analyze, trying to make sense of everything. And then I hit a day where I just go, okay, I have an answer, but this is way too simple. This can't be the answer because, we went through all of this information where it took so long to get here. But I've like now through experience learned that once I hit that aha moment of like, here, I know what it is. I know that simplicity, like that's when we've reached the end. And it's really
Yes.
fascinating to hear you talk about it in this space too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And that's part of my career as well, Brianna. I was a UX researcher and yeah, yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. And the same thing can happen in the dissertation space when you're doing a lot, well, not just dissertation, but if you are a researcher, right? All of this data, all of it, totally overwhelming. You have to be able to take it then, and then you have to move into the realm of intuition and instinct to know what is important. What are the levers to pull, right? What's right in front of your face that you can't see because of the complex nature of the whole, right? Yeah. Beautiful.
When you drop all the thinking around it, there's like a resonance that occurs, like Brianna said, the aha moment. And it's I used to do crash testing, and you'd have 180 pages of charts, 200 sometimes for a test. But I could flip through those suckers, man, boom, 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 and boom, I go right to what needed to be looked at in that test. And that's why they were paying me, because I could do that, but it didn't just happen. Because the first time you look at those, you're like, oh, and then you start, after you do a few of them, you start thumbing through and you go, oh, okay, yeah. We just need to focus on the critical mass of what are the critical elements of this thing, besides what we're looking at, what are like the ancillary supporting elements, to solve it. And I had one other comment. As you were talking about, somehow I've been studying the evolution of man. It's like for the last 3 or 4 months. And what I realize is how in each age, it's like that's what they did. They tried to simplify these problems, come up with a solution that didn't work, which is why they had wars and this and that, And then they would they'd get the new organization, they'd simplify that around, and then they'd have another set of wars because that didn't work. And I was like, holy moly, it's like that drilling down. And then the thing that was uplifting to me is now in this age, we have come to the age of consciousness, where we actually, it's not just about focusing on the problem. It's not just about solving the problem. It's about having a bigger perspective of what's really going on. That's what Mary Jo was talking about, and like to Einstein, that's where all his ideas came from. He took all this complicated stuff and he just drilled right down to the core element that he wanted to address, and it rose up in him and he became famous and smart.
Yeah. Yeah, what was arising for me through that too is it's like, pulling from earlier, from what we talked about last week as well as earlier, is about, so it's just like, so how do we get mastery over these complexity capabilities, right? Well, it's mastery of it is practice. This is why we meditate, and this is why we learn how to play, and this is why we learn to open ourselves. So that, because unless we are doing it in some form in the day-to-day, when it comes to saving the world, if we can't drop into this state of openness and curiosity and allowing the second simplicity to come through, right? Allowing that knowing, or that aha moment, that insight to arise in the space. We first have to learn how to listen, and we first have to learn how to open, and we have to learn how to connect to that space. And the things like, the busyness that Acadia was talking about earlier, that gets in the way of our mastery of this more feminine way of, you know, being in the world of creating solutions, of being able to truly shift something that has felt impossible to shift, right? I mean, if you think about the world's problems and the complexity of the world's problems, it's so easy to drop into it's too much, it's unsolvable, it's too big, it's impossible, right? But it's not impossible, because second simplicity is possible. And it is possible too that as each of us, you know, kind of build the capacity to sit in the complexity, to be able to lean into it, right? To have the tools to actually lean in and to listen to what is trying to get our attention, to maybe what's right in front of our face, right? This allows us to actually have a chance, right? To do the impossible, to do the improbable, which is actually shift our consciousness, which is the key, you know, part of the key, as Mary Jo was saying, you know, we have to shift how we are being. We fundamentally have to shift how we be. We fundamentally have to reconnect. So like in the solve the world, right? I think to oversimplify, I can say that the big problem is our sense of separateness, right? Our sense that we are separate beings from one another. We are separate beings from the earth. We are separated by caste, even, you know, we feel like we're so above every other living thing that occupies this space, right? And we don't truly understand our interconnectedness, you know, because we can't, because we can't grok it. But we can grok it when we connect in and we connect our hearts to one another, and we connect and we feel really truly connected to the earth, you know, and we connect in love, right? You know, so it's just like, so when we feel love for the earth, and then we allow ourselves to feel the earth's love for us, that is what shifts it, right? It's that experiential piece, that instinctual piece that can shift it, right? That can shift everything. Because you can't shift, you can make changes in what you're doing, but it won't really change until you're the being underneath it, right? The consciousness from which it's coming has shifted. And it's shifted such a way that it does for the other beings around us as well. Right?
I had an aha as you were saying that. You know, we were talking about the world problem. I go, oh man, people are carrying all this baggage that they need to deal with. You got to, then I went to, well, you got to solve that baggage. And then I realized, I said, no, if you go into the space of interconnectedness and love, that baggage really falls away by itself. It doesn't have to be solved. It just has to be non-disruptive in your being, basically. And I was like, wow, look about that's at least the first simplicity. Oh, I'm at first simplicity at least.
Yeah. Yeah, Mary Jo.
You know, when I was a junior in college, I was studying in Rome, Italy, and I was at an American college, and there was a suicide that year, and I realized that I fell into a deep depression. And I was friends with the Italian family that lived next door to our apartment. And so they recognized that I was depressed, and they initiated the most creative, intuitive healing experience that I've had in a long time, which was to invite me to go to the park and play hide and seek. And as I would hide, a member of the family would come and put their arms around me. And then I would be discovered, and then I'd hide somewhere else, and another member of the family would come and put their arms around me. And I think this is kind of a perfect example of what we're talking about tonight, you know, that you never know what very simple, loving, kind of embracing action will make a big difference in a situation. So thank you for letting me share that. It's just came to me this week. Yeah.
Yeah. And also just to wrap up that thought, because later some of you are going to go, wait a minute, we didn't do the the chaotic, right? We didn't. So the one thing that I do want to say about the chaotic, kind of the problem space, chaotic is often present when you are in like crisis mode, some moment of crisis, like some earth change, an earthquake or something like that, right? So within that moment of crisis, you've got a chaos problems, a very chaotic problem space, right? The primary tool, the primary effective tool in a chaotic problem space is just instinct. You respond by instinct, and you respond to what's in front of you, right? Like just what's in front of you. So as you notice, the more complicated or chaotic things get, the more it comes down to just like what's right in front of you, right? What is arising in this moment? What's right in front of you to lean into? Pull the person out of the building, run away from the fire, you know. So instinct until then, help and problem solving starts to form, right? Then you'll see people connecting, communicating, starting to come together in ways, and then moving into, you know, complexity, downgrading into complexity, right? From chaos, kind of downgrading into complexity, or moving into simplicity of, right? Just like, I need to set this broken bone. I need to put out this part of the fire. I need to, right? You know, start moving into that. So that, just to wrap that idea set up, I wanted to put that out there.
So for the purpose of this example, how would you have driven us to chaos? We were ordering ourselves by age, and then you added, like, what would have happened in a retreat setting?
Oh, in a retreat setting, we don't.
Oh, okay. I just wondered if there's like a tiger in the back room, or like, order yourselves now.
not to try. Yeah. And so that's usually in the retreat setting, we use about what we call aboutism. We use aboutism. So we bring forward examples, and usually, if we can, examples from people's lives, right? You know, of chaos, and when they're in chaos. And we do it because chaos can be traumatic to a nervous system, right? It's not meant to be long lived, right? Chaos, we don't thrive in chaos. Our nervous systems don't thrive in chaos, whether it be acute or kind of ongoing in a family or a job situation or something like that. It kind of it erodes our stability. It makes our window of tolerance get smaller and smaller and smaller when we're in chaos, because that's an effort to kind of bring some structure to something, anything, right? Yeah, John.
I think in alignment with that example, possibly, I did a study and was involved in a thing about risk taking. And the example was that I can give, and in any risk, it's say you're in your car on the highway and you want to pass the slower vehicle in front of you. And of course, there's traffic coming the other way. At some point, you go to make the pass and you're in the lane. And when you're in the lane, let's call that chaos. And the cars and traffic is coming at you, and you're in the chaos. So you have to go by instinct, because if you hang out in the chaos, there's a certain point where you have to commit to the chaos. And that is, you either put the pedal to the metal and pass the car, or you drive back into your lane. But if you stay out there in the chaos, boom.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right.
it's the instinct thing, and neither decision is wrong, dropping back or surging ahead, but at some point you commit to the chaos and have to, go by instinct.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. Mm. Right, Liz, well, I'm noticing the time. It's almost 8 o'clock. And if you have to go right at 8, I understand, but I would like to close us out by going around and hearing from each of you if you are willing. I invite you to relay perhaps what little gem perhaps are you taking away with you tonight? What really kind of struck a chord and you're going to move forward in your week with it. You can take a moment and think about that too, if you like. Whenever you're ready.
Oops. The biggest thing for me was the first simplicity and second simplicity. And around that was receptivity and patience. Because to get to second simplicity, you have to have receptivity and patience.
Mhm.
And then the third thing that occurred to me was, and first simplicity may come out of mind, but second simplicity will probably come out of intuition, just as a thing.
Thank you.
I'm really struck by this concept that the more complex the variables in a problem get, the more powerful intuition can be as a tool. I think culturally we're trained to think like, oh, sure, like trust your instincts, but really consciously thinking about how this tool becomes even more powerful the more complex the problem gets is an important takeaway.
Yes. Thank you.
I think I love that I love my life, how it is a creative adventure from the card that was pulled. That's my tonight.
Lovely.
I think for me, it's trusting the process and hanging in there, and trusting in the universe to help. Resolution.
Thank you.
I'd say something pretty similar to what Mary Jo just said, really being okay with complexity, having that patience to see things through. And I think it was really great to understand those distinctions of something can be complex, but it's not chaos. It isn't that fight or flight moment where you have to just go, go, go. And I think that's something that I'll sit with a lot this week.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. John.
It brought up something for me, and it's more of a holistic thing again. An old saying, trust in Allah, but tie up your camel. Or in other words, trust in my intuition, but don't throw the intellect out with the wash.
That's right. Yeah.
There was like a lot that I think kind of stuck with me. And this one that like pops out the most, it was like one sentence, Mara, that you said. Kind of not maybe even related, but like being open to receiving Earth's love. And that, is swirling around in my head. And I think, you know, maybe on top of that, my own natural ability to want like the simple solution to like a complex or even chaotic issue or struggle, which is really weird to me because that's kind of swirling around in my head too, because I work with complex folks and like, you know, I don't go like to the simple solution, right? I'm teaching them that like, hey, this isn't simple. But then like my own internal thing is like, what's the easiest? Can we just get this done? Like, let's, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Thank you.
There's a lot there, but one thing for me is having the patience to sit back and allow, as somebody said, allow the process to occur, but to just be open to whatever is going to show up without trying to force a solution, because it, you know, so much so you want to, I want to go to the solution. Okay, let's handle this, move on. Yeah. Step back and have the patience to trust.
Mara, what was the phrase that you used for that? Negative something?
Negative capability.
Negative capability.
Mhm. It has its roots also in Stoicism. I mean, if you're interested in looking at it from kind of an academic point of view. Amanda, did you have anything?
I was just kind of reflecting a little bit on, you know, that the simple answer doesn't necessarily have less value than the complex answer, you know, or the complex situation. It may even be more profound and impactful. And just it's just a different mechanism of going through whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Second simplicity. Hmm. Did you have something,
Sorry.
Courtney?
Sorry, I was just gonna ask what you called those questions when you were like, is it blank or blank? Like sticking points, but it was almost like there was a type
Oh.
of question you called it.
Yeah. Wicked questions.
Wicked?
Wicked.
Okay.
Like wicked
right,
good
right, right.
questions.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Thank
Mara,
you.
Or
are
they're
you
also-
looking at like a prompt document for those wicked questions? Like the,
Yes.
is it this or that? Is that something you could share with the class notes?
Sure.
Or is it
I
like
can do
from
that.
another? Okay. I was just,
Yeah.
you just seem like really good ways to talk to other humans. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like guidelines for talking to other people about things that are real. Like,
Right. Yes.
True.
Yeah. Super valuable.
mhm.
Okay. Well, loves, I am so astounded at your awesomeness and your wisdom and what we are able to co-create and pull together here in our time together. And I'm kind of sad that we're that we're wrapping up and that we're done, because this is truly nourishing. And I think we need a lot more spaces like this. It doesn't have to be just like this, but a lot more spaces where we can really just lean into things that matter, and even randomly, right? Look at the beautiful wisdom that exists here in this group and in our space together. So I thank you so much. I'll be sending out the replay and some notes within a few days, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this time and got a lot of good out of it. So, all right.
Thank you so much for taking your time to host it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
such a beautiful facilitation of this conversation. It was just I'm sure it's hard to strike the balance between guiding but not directing, and you've done it beautifully. Thank you.
All right. Be well. Hopefully I will see you all soon. All right. Good night.
Yeah.